Hey guys. Listen, I gotta keep this brief. I can't stay here too long. Someone's after me, and I don't think he's gonna stop until one of us is dead, which is why it's so important that you hear my story. Now, parts of this are gonna sound crazy. Parts of it will sound entirely made up, but in case I don't make it through this alive, there's some things that you should know. Now, it all began a couple of weeks ago when the world first started going into lockdown. I decided to quarantine myself on a nice, comfy, tropical island, somewhere I could clear my head, get some fresh air, and spend the time coming up with new muscle and magic videos. First, it was great. The other islanders were nice, they pretty much kept to themselves, but even then, my instincts told me that something wasn't right. Looking back, the red flags were all around me, but I didn't see a thing, either because I couldn't, or because I didn't want to. For one thing, the villagers were almost too nice. They were always giving me stuff, they didn't ask too many questions, and there was something about the way they would just stand around and look at me sometimes. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something was off. Now, the payment plan for the condo I was renting out seemed a little bit too good to be true, but what really rubbed me the wrong way was a gentleman who sold me the getaway package. I don't know, he had these dark rings around his eyes and this vacant expression that was almost inhuman. Now, I didn't start to put one and one together until one day when I was surfing the internet on my temporary phone. That was the other weird thing. We all had to use these standard issue phones. In fact, we were required to turn in our smartphones once we got to the island. But whenever I would try to use this phone to look on the internet for news updates about the virus or really anything about the outside world, I got nothing but island merchandise ads and these weird activity suggestions. Fortunately, we weren't completely cut off from the outside world because occasionally bottles would wash up on the shore with notes, Pinterest-esque DIY suggestions for some reason, and on one particular day, a phone. Now, I suspected the wireless was being monitored, so I used the cellular data to look up everything I hadn't been able to. I read about the virus's spread, I read about numbers in different parts of the world, but what made my blood run cold was when I read about the origins. You see, I read that it was allegedly traced back to these wet markets, places where humans were in the same vicinity as multiple species of animals which were kept close together, usually under less than sanitary conditions. And that's when it all clicked. And I realized just what a terrible mistake I had made. Animals. My neighbors were animals. I was living on a small island of animals, jam-packed with as many different species as you could possibly imagine. Mammals, amphibians, fish, birds, bats, you name it. And you want to talk about sanitation? Let me put it to you like this. Not one of those animals, not a single one of them, had a toilet in their house. I didn't even have a toilet in my house, and I never even thought about it. And that's what's so scary about this entire thing. You can see just how much of a master manipulator this guy was. I come to find out later, he had set up hundreds, maybe even thousands of islands just like it all over the world. Each one a perfectly set up little zoonotic breeding ground, just waiting for an overly naive human to spring for the discount and move right in. And it's not safe here any longer. Listen to me very carefully. I don't know what his endgame is, but you need to know the name of the man responsible for this pandemic is Tom. No. How did you find me? I covered my tracks. Oh, you cold, heartless bastard. I don't know what you're playing at, but I'm not paying you another bell until you pay for what you've done. Oh, yes. That's right. I know your secret. And now they do too. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna let you... You son of a